Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to have Kerry and King joining me. Hi Kerry.
Hi.
So just a little bit about Kerry. So Kerry Ann King, who also writes as Kerry Schafer, is a Washington Post and Amazon charts best-selling author who writes compelling and transformational stories about family and personal growth with elements of mystery, humor, and an undercurrent of romance. Often, you'll also find a touch of magic. As Kerry Schafer, she writes fantasy and quirky paranormal mystery. To date, Kerry's published 12 novels, with lucky number 13 releasing in October. When not absorbed in her creative pursuits, you'll find Kerry hanging out with her Viking on her little piece of heaven in rural northeastern Washington. She loves interacting with readers, and your latest book is Other People's Things, is that right? Which
Correct,
we can
yes.
see in the back there. Yep, and you've got one there. And I read a copy as well and really loved it. I
Awesome.
loved the concept of what the main character did. That's something a little bit different.
Yeah, I had fun with that.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was great. So just wondering, do you want to start by telling us a bit about Other People's Things?
Sure, absolutely. So, Other People's Things is a story about a woman with a little bit of an unusual problem.
Mm.
She senses that things are not where they're supposed to be and has a compulsion really to move them. Unfortunately, these things belong to other people. So, at the time that she's turning 30, she spent a lot of time in jail. She's not in good shape with her family. It's hard to get a job. And she's about to get divorced because she moved kind of a lot of money that belonged to her husband.
Mm.
So that's where we begin this story. But what we discover as we go is that Nichols moving things might not be a curse, but maybe a gift, because when she moves things around, things tend to happen that might actually be good for other people. So that's the basic premise of the book.
And what gave you the idea for this, and especially with her quirky little habit?
It's kind of a mix of a couple different things. One, I am fascinated by, I feel like objects do have some level of energy. I'm
Mm.
one of those people, I'll walk into a space and I want to walk right back out and I'll say, I don't like the feeling in this room, or it's got weird juju or whatever.
Mm.
I'll get, I'll pick up an object and think it feels really good. I have this little rock actually that I'm holding right now because it just feels
Good stuff.
good to me.
Yeah.
So I had that kind of idea about objects. And then one day, one of my splurges that I started doing, I hate cleaning, hate. It was cruel of me to make my main character in this book a cleaner.
A cleaner.
So I hate it passionately.
That's
But I
funny.
was coming home one day after having the cleaners in, and as I had my hand on the doorknob, I had the thought about, what if you were cleaning houses and you had the ability to read the energy of the people who lived there, so you could kind of pick up their vibe? So it kind of started there, and then I sat down to write, and Nicole just basically showed up, told me who she was, what her problem was, and we went from there.
Yeah, yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about how you became to be a writer? Is it something growing up that you always thought you wanted to do? And
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm one of those kids that loved books from the
yeah.
very beginning. I had, the picture books that my mother read to me. I had them memorized at a
Mm.
very young age and would pretend I was reading. I remember very clearly being so excited when I learned to read words, and just
Mm.
reading those little picture books was just the most amazing thing ever. So it kind of made sense that I would want to write.
Yeah.
And I started, I think around sixth grade, I started writing poetry
Oh,
first.
really? Yeah.
Terrible poetry, and and then it just kind of went from there. So
Yeah.
I never really ever stopped
Mm.
writing.
Mm. And how did you get that first book published? Could you tell us a bit about your publishing journey?
I can. I had a really unique kind of experience with my publishing journey. I was doing, well, it took me 10 years to write my first book, by the way. So if there's anybody that's out there that's trying to be a writer, it don't give up.
Yeah.
Took me 10 years to write that first book, and then I revised it until there was hardly anything left of the original. And I was querying agents and doing the thing and not getting anywhere. And then I got invited to join this new little organization, Penguin, random, but it was Penguin back then, had started this little thing that they called Book Country, which was an online platform for authors. And the idea was that you could post chapters or your whole book or whatever and get feedback from all of the other authors. And if people liked your book, you got stars, and your book would kind of rise up to the top. And then what they wanted to do was make it be a place where editors and agents could come in and find writers instead of the slush pile submission thing that we usually do. So I had the really good fortune to be in on that from the very beginning when they were testing it. And then right after it went live, I was the first author that actually got picked up by an editor off of that site. So that was really super exciting. I still remember my heart absolutely stopping beating when I get this phone call and it's like, this is Book Country and an editor would like to talk to you about your book. Do you mind? I'm like, no, I don't mind.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's a
that
great
was awesome.
story. Yeah, that's a great story. And like we said before, you're up to your 13th book now. So how many is that, one a year, or how many are you writing? Do you finding?
It's been one or two since I got my first book published. So the book I was just talking about, Between, which is a Kerry Schafer fantasy novel, by the way, there's a trilogy, that was released in 2012. So one or two a year ever since then.
Yeah. And the more you write, do you feel the pressure to keep getting better and better, or do you find it gets easier, or no
it doesn't get easier. It gets, some things get easier. It gets easier in the way that I know that I can write a book, and so even though I still tend to get stuck somewhere or get a little bogged down, I'm pretty confident that I'll figure it out. But it's still, I think the more you write, the more critical you get, possibly, of your own writing. And so I want each book to be a little bit better than the last one. And then I start reading these really fantastic books by other people, and then the doubt can kick in. But, I really believe in doing a lot of mindset work. It's something I actually do as a coach with other writers. So I just take care of that and keep writing. Every book has its own way that it wants to be written. So for me, it's just remembering to listen to that.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah. And what about your writing day? Do you structure what you're going, or plan what you're going to do, or set aside a certain amount of time? How do you go about that?
It really varies. For most of my writing life, I was working a full-time job. And so making sure that I got my writing time in, I got in this habit of getting up at 4:00 in the morning, and I would write from 4:35 until 6. And then I'd get the kids ready for school, go to my day job. Otherwise, it never happened. So that was my program then. But now that I'm self-employed, I find that I'm much less structured. So it just I still try and write in the morning. I like to make it, prioritize it, and make it the most important thing. Sometimes if I'm really into a book, or if I have a deadline, then I'll be writing on and off all day, sometimes just for an hour or so. I used to like to go to coffee shops a lot, but COVID kind of screwed that up for me.
I was going to ask you if you had a favorite place to write.
I did, home mostly. There's a coffee shop I used to go to, but it closed, and I haven't found another one where I feel really comfortable. And then, like I said, then COVID happened, and so mostly at home. I have a loft. We have an open air house, so for a while there was a problem because my Viking is retired, and he'd be making a lot of noise and talking to me and watching TV and whatever. But I got earbuds and sound makers, and so I like to sit at my little loft desk. That's my favorite place to write. Or out on my porch, actually, on my back deck, looking out at the trees. It's very good.
And what about research? Can you share anything that you researched for other people's things?
Sure. Let me see. I did more research for my new book. I'm thinking, what did I research for other people's things? All kinds of stuff, probably. Kleptomania.
Yeah.
I did a little research on kleptomania. I did research on legal stuff. I did, as a matter of fact, I had to have a lawyer help me.
Okay.
I have a friend who's a lawyer, fortunately, because I have some court scene stuff at the end of the book that I wrote in, and she said I couldn't do it the way that I had it.
Okay.
So I like checking in with a professional whenever possible and getting them to prove stuff like that.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah.
And do you want to tell us about your new book?
I do, as a matter of fact. I'm very excited because, well, a new book, right? So this is Improbably Yours, which is coming on October 18th. This is a story, again, a young woman who is on a track she doesn't really want to be on. You know how you get set on that career course that isn't really what you wanted, but your parents had in mind, and she's in a relationship with a guy she kind of fell out of love with, but he's the perfect man.
Okay.
And on her 30th birthday at the garden party where the whole family is gathered for the surprise party she didn't really want, she's been offered a job she doesn't want, and she gets the marriage proposal in front of God and everybody. He's down on one knee, and she's like, I can't not say yes.
Yeah.
And this weird little man comes in with a balloon bouquet and a message and a gift from her long deceased grandmother. And it's a weird sort of bequest where her grandmother wants her ashes to be buried on this island that Blythe believes was a fantasy island that they made up together when she was a child. So it's got a little treasure hunt, discovering secrets from grandma. It has a Viking in it. It takes place on an island that I got to make up in the San Juans, which is a tourist resort that features the summer treasure hunt. So it's quirky, it's a little weird, it's got romance, it's got mystery, and it was a whole lot of fun to write.
No, it sounds pretty exciting. Sounds like lots of things happening.
Yeah, and it was great. Like the research for that book, what we actually did was go to the San Juan Islands and, drive around and take the ferries and hang out. And it was absolutely amazing.
No, sounds good. And just wondering, like this might be a hard question because you do have a lot of books in that, but do you have a favorite character out of your book?
A favorite character? I'm going to give you characters from both of my author selves because as Kerry and King, as Kerry and King to date, Nickel from Other People's Things really is my favorite character. I really adore her. She's this wonderful mix of kind of tough and vulnerable and smart and self-effacing but stubborn, and anyway, I loved her very much. She was great fun to write. And as Kerry Schafer in my weird, quirky paranormal mysteries, my main character in those books is a woman named Maureen, who is 60. She's been a paranormal investigator all her life, but they've decided that she's too old and they don't want her anymore, but she's still doing it because she's totally, I love this old woman. Well, she's not old. I'm almost there. But anyway, she is so much fun to write because she really doesn't care what anybody thinks. She says whatever she wants. She's just, you can't beat her because she's just smart and, she's just totally kick-ass, I'm going to say.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit more about your writing as Kerry Schafer? Is that character you mentioned, is she in more than one of your books?
Yeah, there's a series. So the series with Maureen there's 3 books to date. It's called the Shadow Valley Manor Mysteries. They're all set around a small town called Shadow Valley, and there's a retirement community there in a building that looks just like a standard retirement home when you first look at it, but it has secret passages and some mysterious ghosties, ghoulies, and creepy things, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, No, that I think I'll have to look that up as well. Too many books to read.
Yeah, I know, right? So many books, so
Yeah,
little time.
yeah. What do you like reading yourself?
I love reading just about everything,
Mm,
which, as you can tell by my writing, I'm a totally eclectic reader, and so it's really hard for me to stick within a genre like I'm
mm.
supposed to do. I'm always crossing those little lines. My first love was fantasy. I adore fantasy. I
Mm,
love mystery. I like thrillers. I really do love the psychological dramas. I like an undercurrent of romance. I never hardly ever read like straight up romance. I always
mm,
like there to be other things going on with the plot. So those are the things that are my favorite kinds of books.
mm. And anything you might have been reading lately that you'd like to recommend to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading some really fun stuff lately. So one of the things I've been reading is the Karen White's House on Trad Street
Oh, yeah,
series.
yeah.
They're so much fun. It's Southern women's fiction, but the
Mm,
main character is a realtor who specializes in old houses, although she hates them because she sees ghosts and they talk to her and she really doesn't want to. And
mm,
so it's this very fun series of old houses and the ghosts that live in them and solving the mysteries and saving people's lives, and there's a wonderful romance, so those are very fun. I am
yeah.
currently reading it's called Summer at Hideaway Key by Barbara Davis. That was one of her earliest books. You guys
Mm,
probably know Barbara Davis because she has been making a big splash lately with
mm,
Last of the Moon Girls
yeah.
and Keeper of Happy Endings.
Mm,
So Summer at Hideaway Key. I've been reading Island books because I'm looking for comparable books for Improbably Yours.
okay. Yeah.
So that's why I picked up hers.
Mm,
And then just before that, I just finished reading The Keeper of Metzen Valo,
okay.
which is a kind of gothic set on an island,
Mm,
Finnish mythology.
mm,
So that's really cool
mm.
stuff. That's just some. I mean, I've got a whole bunch more. I can talk for hours. I read a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we always love getting lots of recommendations, so thanks for that. I'm wondering, in other people's things, do you have a favorite part of the book?
hmm. Um, there are several, probably. I
Mm,
don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry. I like where Hawk shows up, I
yeah.
have to say. And there's a very fun scene where Hawk, by the way, is the male character in the book.
Mm,
He's a private investigator, um, and I adore him. And there's a fun scene in there where Nickel discovers what his real name is and that he lives in his mother's basement. And it's actually just really kind of an endearing scene between two of them because he's a big, tough looking
yeah,
guy.
yeah,
But he has some history that makes him a lot softer than that. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
like that part.
yeah.
Hawk, by the way, speaking of writing a book and does it get easier, I had this book 3/4 of the way done and
Mm.
Hawk was not in it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I was
Mm.
stuck, and I was actually in the shower. This is really fun because we all like to have the idea of a hot guy showing up in the
Mm.
shower, and Hawk actually did. I
Yeah.
was in the shower thinking about the book, and Hawk basically showed up and was like, I am a really big, unconventionally good-looking guy,
Mm.
and I'm a private investigator, and I'm here to solve all of your problems, he said.
Mm.
And I said, cool, bring it on. But then I
Mm.
had to go back to the beginning and, of course, rewrite everything to put him in, and now I
Yeah.
can't imagine the book without him.
Yeah, no, neither could I, yeah. Yeah. And we've got a few people watching, so just wanted to remind the people watching, if you do have any questions for Kerry, please type them in comments and I can read them out. I do have a question from Elise. She
Uh-huh.
wonders if you ever dread writing a scene in a book.
Do I dread writing a scene?
Mm,
Um,
it's an interesting question.
Dread, not so much. I know
Mm,
some authors do because they really don't like to make their characters suffer, but
mm,
I always know that they're going to be okay in the end, so I
mm,
don't mind dragging them through the dirt. The only scenes I dread, and it's not dread really, the hardest scenes for me are ones with a lot of people in them. I'm an introvert and I don't like crowds anyways. So when I
Yeah.
have a whole bunch of people in the room with a character and you have to pay attention to what everybody's
Yeah.
doing and what their facial expressions are and where they are
Mm,
and how they're reacting, I find those scenes really difficult to write.
mm. No, that's interesting, yeah. And when you like your characters, when you finish writing your book, do your characters stay with you after you've finished, or do you just totally forget about them and then you get on to your next book and think about those characters?
It depends kind of
Mm.
on the book. Nickel and Hawk are still kind of hanging out with me. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I'm planning, as a matter of
Mm.
fact, I wrote a short story tie-in and I'm definitely planning on writing a follow-up book to that
Okay.
because I've had a
Mm.
lot of readers have asked for that actually.
Mm.
They would like to see more. For the most part though, I do let the characters go because
Mm.
I'm writing standalones and I need to have my new characters in my head.
Yeah.
So like even right now it's weird talking about even and probably yours, which is my most recent one coming up because I'm now writing two new books actually. I
True.
have two that I'm playing with right now, so I have those characters now taking up all of my
Mm.
headspace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it must be quite hard talking about one and then another one coming up and then write it. Yeah,
I get confused
yeah,
sometimes, like which book am I
yeah,
talking about now?
exactly. Yeah, and like you've written some series. When you're writing a series, how do you keep things fresh, both for yourself and for your readers?
That's a trick actually to keeping things fresh. I mean, so it doesn't get boring and dull and repetitive and all of
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
just I don't have a problem with that. I My imagination is pretty vivid, and
yeah.
so I allow it to play out. I let my characters come up with stuff, and I bring in new
Mm,
characters. So the series that I love always seem to do that. Like every book, there's a new character, and then they keep them
yeah.
around if they're good. And so I've been kind of doing that, adding to my character list,
Mm.
and making a point of developing the secondary characters that I already have.
Mm, yeah. And Elise wonders how you can manage to write two books at a time.
Not very well. It's not something I'm good at. Right now, weirdly, I'm kind of playing. I have two very different things going, and
Mm,
I'm finding that sometimes I just don't want to work on one, and then I go work on the other one,
mm.
and then that's okay. Usually, what I'll do. Oh, great! There's loud
Someone's
music starting here. I
yeah.
hope that's not. Um, I have an office where I come, so I have internet, and I'm above like a restaurant.
Oh,
So
okay, and it's
sometimes the
their
music gets
music
loud.
we can hear. Yeah.
Sorry
We
about
can
that. It
still
was
hear
all
you.
quiet.
We can still hear you fine. That's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. So could you tell us, is there anything you'd like to share for any new writers that might be watching?
Any new writers? I'm a really big fan of just start writing. Don't try to be perfect. Know that drafts are always messy and
Mm,
that every writer doubts themselves. I don't know anybody, no matter how successful they've been, who doesn't at some point in time think that maybe they aren't really a writer.
mm,
So don't let that get to you and pick what you like and just start because you love it and
mm,
um, find a way to write regularly. So sometimes it helps to have a partner to show up with so that you're meeting somebody or have somebody holding you accountable or set a time, give yourself rewards, whatever it takes to kind
mm.
of just get in the habit, and then
Yeah,
it
yeah.
makes it easier.
Yeah, and I was recently listening to Kristen Hanmel's, is it Four Winds? I
Uh-huh.
think, yeah, about the Dust Bowl and all that. And at the end, they did an interview with her, and one thing she said really surprised me. And I don't know, I wouldn't have thought it would be something common with writers, but like to know what you would think. She said that her characters, she doesn't really think about what they look like or what their voices sound like or anything like that, which surprised me. Is that how do you go about your characters? Like, do you visualize them?
Um, my characters come to me more almost as I have a sense of them when they start. I just kind of have a feeling. I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, so I spent these years talking to people in my office, and I kind of just always, when I had a client, I'd have a sense of who they were, that was deep and beyond what they look like or what their background was or any of that. So I usually have that about the character first, but then I want to tell my readers what they look like. So then I come up with what do we really look like for the most part. For people like sometimes like Hawk, really right away I knew what he looked like.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for chatting with me. It's been great talking to you, and really hope I get a chance to talk to you again.
Yeah, that would be great.
And thanks for the people who watched and the questions that were asked.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.